So all of us wish to have good yoga, and many of us say, yes, we have yoga, but we would like to have better yoga. And so this invitation to spice up the yoga is intriguing. Now, spice doesn't mean just chili, but there are many, many flavors. So I'm interpreting spicing up your yoga as bringing many flavors into it so that you enjoy your food for thought, which is given to us every day in the Murli by Baba. And as you know, the four subjects of the study of Raj Yoga are like this. First of all, Gyan, then Yoga, then Dharana, then service. And so knowledge means concepts. And we have this word Shrimat, which is translated in many ways, but essentially the knowledge that we are studying is called the original knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita. And so knowledge means concepts, which is called the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, that is the concepts that come to us from the mind of God, incorporeal God, through his medium, Prajapita Brahma, who spoke from about 1936 until 1969, followed by the trance medium Dadi Hirdemohini, who became the medium of Bap Dada, who continued to speak to us until 2018. So we have a huge, vast treasure of food for thought. And food, you see, has to be prepared, has to be, cooked and considered and worked with, so that what you experience when you eat the food is something extraordinary. And food is also something that we give a lot of attention to in our Brahmin life, because this is called Brahma Bhojan, and this is also the offering that is given, that enables an individual to come close to what's known as the ancestor soul. So Brahma Baba and the Dadis are ancestor souls, of course. And we have a special connection with the Supreme Father, the Supreme Teacher, the Supreme Satguru. So this means that the ideas that come to us through these means are the foundation of our yoga. And it is said, one of the expressions that is given both in the Murlis and in the Bhagavad Gita, the conventional Bhagavad Gita, is the knowledgeable soul is greatly loved by God. So the thing that we are spicing, I think, is our relationship with the knowledge. And one definition of meditation that I use quite a lot is it is deep pondering, deep consideration of ideas that are worth thinking about. And Baba often tells us you must churn the Murli. And churning means that you have to take an idea which strikes your mind. You get a new one every day, or several every day, as you listen to the Murlis. And you are struck by a particular combination of words or juxtaposition of sentences, which makes you think. Because if we meditate on the same thing every day in the same way, it's totally boring, and we would only do it not more than twice or maximum 3 times. So the idea of spicing your yoga is to really consider yourself as an individual who is preparing a meal of concepts for yourself to enjoy. And in France, where I live, we have a wonderful word which is dégustation, and that is to taste in such a way that you grasp the fullness of all the flavors that are there in the meals. And so the spicing of these meals takes into consideration which spice goes with which. You have sweet spices for the desserts. You have savory spices for the other parts of the meal. And all of it is to feed your spirit, because the idea of yoga is to be in communion with incorporeal God, and it is a relationship. So a relationship is not going to work very well if it's the same every time. It's going to be too boring, and the relationship won't last too long. So the relationship has many flavors, many temperatures, many aspects, all the things that make the human experience filled with the full spectrum of emotions and feelings and meaningfulness. And if we sustain our relationship with God in this way, our yoga will be very satisfying, very satisfactory. And of course, together with the yoga, we also have obstacles to yoga. And these are very important because they are challenges. And if we don't have challenges, also our yoga will be boring. And we also have moments where we're very satisfied with ourselves, other moments where we're dissatisfied with ourselves, moments of doubt, moments of frustration, all these various different things, which are also spice in the yoga, because some of it's a bit like chili, and you think it's too hot or too difficult and you can't take it and all this type of thing. So this is like life. So it is said for a Raj Yogi that you are in continuous remembrance of God. So we need to look at this word remembrance, because it is, it can be translated in many ways, this word yad. And we have the word yoga, as well as the word yad. We have the word nishta. You probably don't know this word nishta, but nishta is a word specifically for sitting in yoga, which is conducted by someone sitting at the front, and there is a sharing of drishti. It's called nishta. Now, some people, when they're meditating, they like to rest their eyes on a picture of Shiv Baba, a picture of Brahma Baba. But it's not required, because our meditation is really located inside our mind, inside our heart. And you know who is the significant being in your life. And all of this is in the context of what we call the great unlimited drama, all the actors and all the performances, the circumstances and situations. And all of these are packed with challenges and tests, which are specially designed to interfere with our yoga. But the real secret behind this situation is that it enables us to develop a very powerful state of connectedness with God in our lives, which takes precedence over all of the attractions and repulsions and distractions that are going on in our interactions with people, places, objects, circumstances, situations, and so on. And it is said to us, well, you're actors, this is a performance. And what you need to be is tuned in with the source, with God, while engaged in action. And this is also known as karma yoga. So if you want to be in continuous connection with the Supreme Being, you have to be attentive, because you have to live on 2 levels at least all the time. And that requires a lot of attention. So one very important meaning of yoga is concentration. So attention and concentration go together. And it's very, very difficult to be this much attentive while engaged in all sorts of things that carry you away. And this is especially the emotions and sensations and experiences that take place, because our mind will go to all these places, and we will experience these triggers from sense perceptions. We get triggered to feel good, to feel bad, to feel afraid, to feel uncertain, to feel all the various many feelings. And once you get triggered involuntarily, it also cuts your yoga. And so part of your attention is to be clear with yourself that your state of mind is up to you, not up to circumstances. And so you are in that way developing actually your willpower, because you decide. And whatever you decide, that's what happens. But if you're not attentive and you don't exercise your power to decide, then circumstances will decide for you, and you are tossed around like a leaf in the wind. And so this is also mentioned in the conventional Bhagavad Gita that you can buy in the shops. And there are aspects of Raj Yoga that we study here, which you cannot find anywhere else except here. So these are, I would say, the most important. And I think it's very important to know that your yoga is like a laser beam between yourself and the Supreme Being. You are physically in the material world, of course, but your mind is not part of the material world. It's part of the soul, which is not part of the material world. And your mind is either oriented towards your sense perception, which is also known as being externalized, or it's oriented towards what you know, which is also called being internalized. So what you know and what you experience through sense perception is not the same. So you have to decide which takes precedence at which moment and why, and what we're going to do with it. So you can see it does require a fair amount of attention. And then we hear this word, sahaj, Hindi word sahaj, which is always translated as easy. But actually, if you check that word, you find there are many other shades of meanings which you are completely able to include in your interpretation of how this is Sahaj Yoga. So one meaning of Sahaj that I came across very recently is the word innate. So Sahaj Yoga can be translated as innate yoga. So this is a little piece of salt and pepper that you can put onto your ideas about Sahaj Yoga. Now, innate means something very different from easy. So if yoga is innate, then there's a whole set of logical considerations that you can take up in your mind to think about what are the implications of using the word sahaj to mean innate. So innate means it's part of me. It means it's absolutely natural for me to be in yoga with God. And another piece of information that helps a lot is that it's natural for us to be soul conscious. So when we're soul conscious, yoga is natural. When we're soul conscious, we are on the same wavelength as incorporeal God. And when we're body conscious, we're on the wavelength of everybody else. And so it's a decision, which wavelength do you want to be on? It's like tuning a radio. You want this program or that program? You just switch the dial to the program you want. And our practice is to put ourselves, first of all, into soul consciousness, because then you're on the same dimension as incorporeal God, which means that it's just a little step to be in connection. But many people don't quite realize how simple it is. And I suppose we could say it's easy when you know how. It's easy when you pay attention. It's easy when you have figured it out and you become expert. But when you're not attentive, when you are all caught up in the sense perceptions, the sights and sounds and circumstances, and you stay there most of the time in that state, then it becomes quite difficult to get into yoga. And I think one of the reasons is because a lot of people practice yoga in certain circumstances, like you have to have quiet. If it's noisy, you can't be in yoga. Actually, it shouldn't have to be like that. But for many people, they say, no, it's got to be quiet. It's got to have the right lighting. It's got to have the right music. It's got to have the right people in there. And many, many requirements are there, which, you know, in an ideal situation, maybe you can get that, but not very often. And it still keeps you caught up in the material circumstances. So it's very, very helpful to practice being in soul consciousness, in the vibration of soul consciousness, which is a different, like a harmonious note or different frequency from body consciousness. And I mean, if you are sensitive to frequencies of vibrations, then you would feel it when you're soul conscious, when you're body conscious. And when you practice attentively grasping that vibration, in some ways you can say it's a bit similar to if you're a musician and you have a string instrument that you have to tune, because when you play it, it goes out of tune very easily. And before you begin to play, generally speaking, you will tune up your guitar or your ukulele or your cello or your viola or your any other string instrument, your dulcimer. There are so many string instruments. And when you pluck the string, it emits a note. And up to you to vary the note to play your music. And in many ways, the soul is like that. You have to be tuned in order to make connection with Shiv Baba, because it's soul to supreme soul. And if your note is flat, you can say, out of tune, it'll kind of keep you down in the region of matter. and it somehow won't let you get into that state of soul consciousness. So depending on what works for you, you can try different types of analogies to help yourself to be in the right frequency. And I think an interesting word for this is spiritual technology. This is, if you call it techniques, but I think it's a kind of technology. You need to know what you have to do in order to get into connectedness. And I think playing a meditation commentary will sometimes help you for that, but a lot of times it won't, because they kind of keep you where you already are, and maybe a little slower or something like this. But for me, I think it's all about really practicing and experimenting with what is my vibration right now, and grasping the difference between the soul conscious vibration and the body conscious vibration. And if you are in your power, if you are in your complete self-awareness, and you've created a kind of barrier between yourself and the rest of the world, so that you can maintain your frequency rather than just immediately get pulled into the other frequencies that other people are in, which of course is on the whole body consciousness, varieties of body consciousness. So it's quite tricky. And this is why sometimes while Baba says this is easy ride yoga, he says it's the most difficult thing of all. And your obstacle, he says, is Maya. So Maya actually, I think it doesn't really mean vices, it means emotions. Think about it. Greed, anger, lust, attachment, ego, etc., they are all connected with desires or unfulfilled desires or reactions to unfulfilled desires. And that's mostly to do with emotions. And then if you act on an emotion and do something negative, then maybe that would be a vice. But the emotion itself is a feeling. And the emotions, which we may call negative emotions, they arise when the soul is weak, when the soul is not regularly sustaining itself in the practice of soul consciousness and the practice of being connected with the incorporeal God. And so when you feel difficulty because you haven't really been attentive in this systematic way. And this is why it's called difficult, because it's work. Now, there are a few BKs who are professional, high-ranking sports people or intellectuals. And the speciality of people who reach those levels are that they applied a lot of discipline to their training, and you cannot become a world champion in any area of sports unless you apply a great deal of discipline. The same applies in any other area that you want to excel in: music, the arts, in all the different areas of human endeavor. If you really want to excel, then you have to work at it, you have to train, you have to be disciplined, you cannot just be slack. Otherwise, you will lose your position. And I think the same thing applies if you really want to excel in yoga and achieve what is possible through the practice of yoga. And I think that if you hear that yoga is easy and all you have to do is be lovey-dovey, sweetie, sweetie, remember Baba, and the religious way or childish way, then you wouldn't realize what's possible. And I'm saying these things because there may be some of you who would like to upgrade your yoga. And maybe some of these points may be helpful for you. Sometimes we think that, well, you know, if I attend the class, then that will make me at that level. But no, you can attend the class, but if you don't do the work, if you don't really prepare and cook your knowledge with good spices and consume it so that it becomes the fuel to take the rocket of your soul to the destination, the Supreme Soul, then you will feel that there's some kind of lack, and that can make you feel frustrated or doubtful. Maybe this isn't working, maybe this is not the right thing. There's nothing wrong with the instructions of how to do this, but if we don't apply them in a way that is effective, then we won't get the result. So in that sense, it's very much of a technology. And if you want to be a really, really good cook, then you need to know a lot of technology to do with temperature and all the different combinations of flavors and foods and so on. And then you can be a Michelin chef, as they say, a 5-star chef. And in the same way, we can be a 5-star yogi, but we need to think about the elements of yoga, which, when put together in a really good, tasty way, actually enable us to be a yogi with this feeling of success that, yeah, I am a yogi, I know I'm a yogi, I know what being a yogi is, and I give it high priority in my existence. And then, of course, we have to think about what is all this Maya that opposes it. And so Maya is like, okay, you're cooking, but you forgot it, so it burned. You can't eat it, it's burnt. Have to throw it away, start again. Or maybe you're cooking and it boiled over, so it went everywhere. It's a mess, you have to clean it up. You get fed up, you see. So this preparation and use of ingredients and paying attention on it means you have to decide where your focus of attention lies. And you hear this word a lot, buddhi yoga. Buddhi yoga is generally translated as yoga of the intellect. But actually in English, there's no such thing as yoga of the intellect. We don't know what that means. But in Hindi, this word buddhi yoga is best, I think, translated as concentration. And concentration means you focus on one thing. And it also means you prioritize. So I think also to be successful in spicing up your yoga, you also need to prioritize. So we hear in our teachings the importance of avoiding what is known as waste thought. So waste thought in Hindi is vyart sankalp. To me, vyart can mean waste, but it's quite difficult to really imagine what a waste thought would be, like a kind of potato peeling that you throw away. It's not really like that. A vyart sankalp is a thought which doesn't have much meaning, or it's not meaningful, it's not significant. And so you need to really look at the thoughts that arise in your mind and decide which thoughts to sustain and which thoughts to discard or neutralize or just don't go there. Because there again, in terms of cooking, you are selecting. You select your vegetables, you select, the best ones, you select the spices that go with those particular vegetables. And in the same way, be very selective about the kind of thoughts that you allow to persist in your consciousness, because these then become the ingredients, the basic ingredients that you spice up with other aspects of the knowledge and your feelings and relationship with the Supreme Being, with the drama, with the other actors, and how you interpret these. You are an artist, and everything you touch is a work of art, and that includes how you work with your thoughts and feelings and sensitivities, because you are the person you create by being very attentive on yourself. So that means that you're putting yourself as priority number one, and the one who helps you to be the very best that you can be is the Supreme Being, your father, your mother, your teacher, your friend, your guide. So this is very, very high priority to sustain that relationship, because what I have found is in your relationship with the Supreme Being, God is reciprocal. If you're attentive to him, he's attentive to you. If you love him, he loves you. You disregard him, he'll disregard you. It's just the way it is. And people don't like that idea, but you can experiment with it and see by your experiments whether this is true or not. I think when one is very much of a child, you assume that, your parent will love you whether you're good, bad, or indifferent. But when you come into more mature relationships, then the reciprocity begins to really play a part. And we want to have a deep, meaningful, and I think reciprocal relationship with the Supreme Being as the student of the most extraordinary information that allows one to be in communication, direct communication with that entity that the whole world has been trying to connect with unsuccessfully. Here we are, somehow we have been gifted with this possibility. And so we have to treasure it, value it, sustain it, take care of it, look after it, and then it will serve us really very, very well. So these are a few thoughts that I have about spicing up your yoga. And I'm just feeling that maybe you may have quite a few questions about this. So let me stop here, and maybe we can come into a conversation with each other and with Maria, and see how we go with that. So Shanti.
Shanti, thank you so much. There is a question here. Actually, there are some, but one says, could you give any advice on how to approach practicing yoga in a particular flavor to help the soul remove a lifelong harmful habit or sanskar, behavioral addiction that needs to be overcome in the Brahmin life? When urges or triggers come up through the day, do you have any advice for what to do to connect with the Supreme Soul in those moments to overcome the urge?
Well, it is the case that pretty much everyone who takes up Raj Yoga is addicted on some level. Some people are addicted to talking too much. Some people are addicted to shopping. Some people are addicted to just wasting their time. And some people are addicted to getting angry with everybody. You know, these are all legal addictions, but they're addictions also. And of course, usually people think of addictions as to drugs and alcohol and stuff like this. But if you think about it, every Raj yogi, which Baba has mentioned, has one thing, at least one thing that they cannot, under any circumstances, overcome, which is going to be their Achilles heel for their entire Brahman life. Have you come across that yourself? Yeah, I think everybody has. At least Baba has stated openly that that's the reality. And so what happens when anybody has to deal with any addiction is, first of all, you have to identify what's your real drug of choice. What's the one thing that you cannot overcome? And this is a key to overcoming ego. Because your ego will say, well, I can handle this, but you can't, which means you're lying to yourself. Ego's kind of interesting because there are a lot of clashes of ego among the Brahmins, because you use this thing called ego to cover up whatever is the thing that you can't get over, by blaming other people for the thing they can't get over, or by pretending, or by, you know, distracting people with some other amazing thing that you can do. But it doesn't work. And so I think first thing you have to do is identify what is your drug of choice, what's the one thing that you cannot deal with. And then you realize that this is connected with your ego, because you use your ego to cover up this stuff, to pretend that it isn't there. And you distract everybody by this alternative you that you present to everybody, which is fake, you see. And this is why the ego is called the false ego. And one of the things that people say, Raj Yogis say, is they want to be authentic, they want to be real. So if that's the case, then it means you want to basically have an ego death. And having an ego death means you've got to want it. And you have to just go through all the things that's necessary to check yourself. And you know that Baba has often talked about the chart. And so different people interpret that in different ways. But one very useful way is to check the chart of the dishonest thoughts that you think to yourself to make yourself feel better, which covers up the fact that you're being dishonest with yourself. Because when you're honest with yourself, that is how it's possible to break the ego. And when the ego is broken, that ego is really the same as body consciousness, you see. And so you can't have yoga and ego at the same time. You can't be in yoga in body consciousness. You have to be soul conscious. So I was talking quite a bit about, you know, tuning yourself and being real and being on the same wavelength as Shiv Baba, making Shiv Baba your priority. These types of things, it means that you're seriously working on this as an adult, not as a child. I think a lot of BKs try to do this thing in quite a childish way, or a school student. You know, we're not. We're all quite old. We got our gray hair already. So we've got to look at this in a very mature and adult way. And I think we can't look at it in a religious way, because religious ways are usually directed at children, you know. And when religious people are doing serious mystical work, they don't generally talk about it. And for us, our relationship with ourself is as important as our relationship with the Supreme Being, because we have to get over our barriers. We have to get over our weaknesses. And, Shiv Baba is the one who sees it, and we see ourselves being seen. It helps us to be honest about ourselves. Because if we're trying to fool God, that's not going to work at all. And you can fool yourself, but you can't fool God. And why would you bother to fool yourself? There's nobody cares whether you fool yourself or not, but you care, you see. So how much self-respect have you got? Or what do you want? This expression, what do you want? I find this very useful, because I think it helps keep you on track. So these are a few points which you could consider when you want to really upgrade or spice up your yoga.
Thank you. Very good explanation. I'll try to read there is a long experience of somebody, but I will translate it and tell you about it later.
Maybe just keep to the essence of it.
Yes, and yes, I'll just do another question. What exactly does Baba mean when he tells us to bring our achievements to our awareness? What are these achievements?
There are certain Murlis, especially Avyat Murlis, where he lists our achievements. And whenever these come around, it's quite good when you're studying the Murlis to, write down things that you want to really think about later. And the achievements is one of them. So, the first thing is you have achieved the recognition of God. That's the foundation achievement. The second achievement is you've been adopted by God, and you have been brought into his family, and you're being educated, and you have access to whatever he knows. This is a huge achievement. And he doesn't usually call it achievement, he calls it attainment. And of course, all this depends on the translation. But these are actually attainments that he's talking about, not achievements, because the word achievement refers to something you acquired for yourself. But an attainment is something that's given to you. And he's not talking about what you acquired for yourself. He's talking about what you received from him. These are called attainments. So it should be translated as attainment. Right? And so you have to count your blessings. There is this expression, count your blessings. So these attainments are similar to blessings that you have received. You have been brought into the family of the most extraordinary people in the whole world, many of whom are seriously flawed, but nevertheless, behind that, these are the most extraordinary, the ancient souls of the world, and you're one of them. That's extraordinary. You have to realize what you have, and you have been guided and protected and supported and so many things. But if you don't count your blessings, you don't notice them, and you just see the cup is half empty instead of the cup is actually pretty full. So it really means you need to pay attention to these subtle attainments that he's given. Part of it is to do with bringing us into the awareness that non-material attainments are far more sustaining and durable and worthwhile and valuable than, 15 minutes of fame or a little bit of something that everybody thinks you're the latest, greatest wonder, but it didn't last long, you know. Everything changes. But these subtle attainments that he's given to us, they will stay with you for life after life after life after life. Nobody else has been taught the philosophy of karma the way we have, so we actually know how to do pure karma. The other people don't really know. They mix things up, a little bit of pure, a little bit of impure. They don't know which is pure, which is impure, what's what. So they can't create the internal wealth. And we have been given direct access to God so that we can draw his power into ourselves, and nobody else can do that. It's very rare. And we've been just given open door, and people don't necessarily take good advantage of it. But if you really think about what you have been gifted with, what are your attainments, you would be pretty satisfied, you see. If not, then people get dissatisfied and then they get caught up in negativity, and that's not so useful, you know.
Okay, thank you. There is a very interesting question here. This phrase came out in the Murli on May 22nd. The Father inspires destruction to happen in such a way that no one accumulates sin because of it. The question here is, he always tells us that it is not his role to intervene in our karma. So how is it that if he can do this, the souls who cause destruction with bombs, etc., do not accumulate sin?
Now, this is faulty logic, I'm sorry. You have to go through this set of sentences and identify where there is faulty logic. So if you just repeat it slowly, I will tell you where the logic is false.
Okay. That was in the movie of 22nd. So the Father inspires destruction to happen in such a way
Stop,
no one
stop, stop,
accumulates.
stop, stop. I have to do it like word by word, otherwise you won't
Okay, good.
catch the problem.
Okay, the Father inspires this.
We got it. We got it. The Father inspires destruction. And so, first of all, you're dealing with a translation. Always remember this. And in the original material, he uses particular words. And when you use the word inspire, it implies that he's doing something and getting people to throw bombs around. At least that's the way this person is interpreting it, you see. And the problem with translation is that the English language is based on the Judeo-Christian concepts of reality. And so there are concepts that exist in the Indian languages which don't exist in English. And so your translation may be accurate technically, but in terms of connotation, there would be a different feel or a different load. This is always the problem with translation. It's always an interpretation based upon preconceptions of the person who's doing it and the person who's hearing it. So there are all these filters. And because of these filters, it's very easy to jump to conclusions which are not implied by what's being said. So go to the next few words.
Yes, but imagine also the translation to English and then to other languages.
Oh, yeah, you know.
It ends up in the...
But you see, the wonder is that Baba is speaking to us directly. Okay, it's via translation, but if the translation is in some way not easy for us to understand, he will make us understand. He will, just kind of intercept somehow. And if you are a good yogi, a good Brahmin, you really understand knowledge, you will not be confused by a translation that could be taken in a number of ways. And this is also a blessing and an attainment. So please continue.
So it says, this inspires distraction to happen in such a way that no one accumulates sin because
Stop
of
there, stop there, stop there. Okay, now there is a rule, like a spiritual law, which says that it is not possible for an individual human being to, as it were, press the button that creates the death of all these many people, because no human being can bear that weight. And so there are speculations that BK's make and have always made since years and years and years, because he has said this many times. And so some people say, well, it could be a mistake. Very easily, it could be a mistake. There was a particular event in which there was a submarine, a nuclear submarine, which was a Russian submarine, and it was in, I think, in American waters. And this was during the Cold War. And the rules in that submarine was that if there is a nuclear emergency, 3 people on that ship have to agree because what happened, I can't remember the exact details, but what happened is that the radar detected an incoming nuclear bomb. And when such a thing is detected, what they have to do is react, respond and send their nuclear bomb. So it was a nuclear sub, so they had to send a nuclear bomb to intercept that one. And so the captain said, yes, we'll do it. Another person said, yes, we'll do it. And there was the third one, who was not a very high-ranking one, but he said, no, we won't do it. So they didn't do it. And later on, they found out that it was a mistake. And if they had done it, it would have been like really, really bad, but they didn't. So this is kind of an example of the sort of circumstance that could happen where something can really happen, but it's nobody individual can be held account for it, because it's a combination of circumstances, or it could be an AI thing, or it could be all sorts of things. But what Baba is saying is that, the destruction is required. Sometimes he says that the flames of destruction originate in the yagya, you see. So what do BKs do? They don't generally press buttons on nuclear bombs. They don't have any. But what we do is we create the power of purity by our meditation. And when we are in the kind of circumstances where there could be world destruction, there's an awful lot of terrible things happening. It could be some natural calamities. It could be some, some wars, some civil war, all sorts of things can be happening. And it's very difficult for anybody to know all of what's happening. But in that time, BKs will be in meditation, I presume. And now when our meditation is really strong in connection with Shiv Baba at a particular intensity that is enough to be more powerful than the power of evil, you can say, then it creates an explosion. And that could easily be how it gets done, but nobody's responsible for it, you see. And so you have to start thinking in that sort of way, rather than thinking about, Baba says this, then my intellect says that he doesn't know what he's talking about. Don't be that much arrogant. You cannot assume that God is stupid. This is not a useful thing to do, you see. So if you look at the rest of the sentence, I can point out where the logic is flawed.
Wow, that was really explained. And I think the question, it's already answered from what you said.
Okay, well, we
You,
could
ex
go to the next question in
you
that
explained
case.
it. Yes, there are many questions.
Okay.
Somebody, because of what you explained, he's asking when distraction will come finally. It's announced for
Wait
more.
and see. Wait and see. You be ready.
Wait and see.
Sometimes Baba has said it will come, when you die, that's destruction for you.
Exactly. Uh, there is a question that says there are times that I don't like to read the Murli because it's too long and feel sleepy. Sometimes I read it, but the mind is somewhere else. I feel guilty and not feeling good. Can you enlighten me?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that guilt is not a feeling, it's a fact. Either you did something wrong or you didn't. Now, not reading the Murli is not a sin. And if you want to feel guilty by your own desire, that doesn't make any sense because it'll weaken you. So I would give up the whole principle of feeling guilty. I think that's a serious mistake. But you should either be guilty or not guilty. And then if you're not guilty, then don't feel guilty. And if you are guilty, then you pay the price. You don't need any feelings for it. But if you aren't reading the Murli at that particular moment, you could read it later. Or the next day. Well, there's lots of ways around it other than feeling guilty. You've got to be adult, not like a baby. Don't take this knowledge as if it is being told to children like catechism in the church. You know what I mean? This is not that kind of thing. And sin is private between you and God, nobody else's business.
Great. Well, I think we ran out of time, but there are so many questions here.
Well, maybe we give ourselves another few minutes.
Well, that is one very simple. Please explain the concept of Maya.
Very simple, right? Yeah. The
Short.
concept of Maya, it is basically materialism and sense perception, attraction, repulsion. It's emotions, it's doubt, it's fooling yourself, being dishonest with yourself, getting caught up in sense perception more than anything else.
And it continues. Is it Maya to indulge in vice, or is it Maya to realize that you're indulging in vice and feel guilty about it? Again, guilty.
Well, what you need to think about is if you say that Maya literally means that which is not there, that's the literal meaning of Maya. So it doesn't mean evil. Maya means that you got caught up in a sense perception and you acted on something which isn't real and made a fool of yourself. That's all it is. And don't feel guilty about doing that. Just wake up and be sensible. That's much better.